members per board protocol. We should strive for 4 minutes for initial discussion, 2 minutes for follow-up, for a total of 10 minutes. So at this point, as long as we're ready, we're going to begin with item number 1, agenda construction change order report with Mr. Rickenbacker and Dr. Savage, if you want to introduce.
All right. It appears that we may have gotten our items back. We have our ESOL in action kind of loaded up on the screen, even though it varies much clearer that it's got the construction change order first. Are you okay if we can just let the change order please go first? Thank you so much, Sweeta. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mr. Rickenbacker, we'll give you a minute to get settled while we bring you up there as well.
Good afternoon, Board. Superintendent, this is your change order report for April of 2024 as required by statute. On the first page, you will see the takeoff. We had $0 of direct material purchases this month. We had change orders in the amount of $198,210.33, which was returned back to the district coffers. And we had contingency adjustments of $89,169.98. If we go to the second page, which is a more detailed breakdown of this reporting, again, the very top column is deductive DMP change orders. We had none. We had 4 pure change orders. 2 were additions, returning funds to the contractors for unused DMP. 1 was a time-only extension, and 1 was a return on a Manny Sierra of $259,000. for a net of $198,210.33 being returned to the district. Below that, we had 4 contingency adjustments for the G. Weaver Hips projects, the Alva School Sewer Lift Station Replacement, Franklin Parks Elementary Rebuild Project, and Franklin Parks, again, Elementary Rebuild Projects. And these contingencies were $89,169.98, which was paid out of the project contingency funds that you've previously approved. Are there any questions?
Board members, comments, questions? Okay, Mr. Persons.
On the Riverdale, the redoing of the portables, are those going to be the portables we're moving?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to know why
we have a portable, well, two items. At Riverdale, we're refreshing the portables to use as swing space as we go through the interior renovation of the school. But we're also using our yearly portable refresh money to help maintain and keep those in good shape. So we're actually out of Franklin Parks using that and getting those prepared for the next move to Cypress.
All right, thank you.
Anything else, board members? Okay, thank you, Mr. Rickenbacker.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Next up will be our presentation, ESOL in action. If you want to, when Ms. Sarmiento is ready, if you want to introduce us, Dr. Savage, thank you.
Absolutely. Sweeta Sarmiento, our director of ESOL, is coming up to the podium. Just want to give a moment to just shine a light on the excellent work that she's done thus far, which has just been phenomenal here in the district. And we'll have a lot of other folks who will be introduced during the presentation, so I don't want to steal any of the thunder that comes with those formal introductions that will come through it, but just want to highlight Director Sarmiento and her tremendous work in the district.
Thank you. Okay, it's on. I hear myself echo. Thank you. All right. Great. During today's presentation, we will discuss the following programs, their implementation, highlight the successes that they've had this school year, and then the pictures that you'll see throughout the presentation are pictures of our very own students in participating in all of these events that we've had throughout the year. We'll begin with the Close-Up Foundation. This year, the Close-Up program was made possible through ESSER funds. Since 1971, Close-Up is the nation's premier nonprofit civic education organization that has the mission to inspire, engage, and empower students to become active citizens. The overarching goal is to provide students with the knowledge, skills, and dispositions necessary for effective and responsible participation in the process of democratic society and the American political system. Students are not told what to think, but they are taught the skills needed to analyze policy issues for themselves. The Close-Up program serves all students regardless of academic performance and ethnicity. To be eligible to participate in the Close-Up program, students had to be in the ESOL program in grades 9 through 12 and have a WIDA proficiency level or 3 or higher. It's the test that measures our English language proficiency skills. From December 6th through December 8th, we had 83 English language learners from 6 different high schools participating in the 3-day Rally to Tally event in Tallahassee. Students engaged in seminars with policymakers, explorations of historical sites and government offices. In addition, they had the opportunity to visit a Florida university where they learned about the admission process and what university life looks like. During this event, students worked together in different committees to identify issues in their own community, research solutions, write policy proposals, and come up with possible solutions. They presented their proposals to the other committees and elected officials in the state capitol. Some of the issues and proposals they presented included substance abuse, teacher shortage, domestic violence, access to mental health, immigration, cyberbullying, gun violence, and many more. Through this unique experience, students developed a greater understanding of the rights and responsibilities of citizens and the skills necessary to take on those responsibilities. In addition to raising the level of awareness of what it takes to be an engaged citizen, students also developed and strengthened their communication, collaboration, and leadership skills, important skills that will help them succeed in life and work. The proposals that the students wrote and presented at the state capitol during the Rally to Tally event were then showcased at our local Youth Policy Summit here in Fort Myers. The expo took place on March 1st, where students had poster board presentations on the issues they want to address within Lee County. Students met with a group of local panelists knowledgeable in the topics they researched in Tallahassee to refine their final presentations. Local leaders, organizations, public officials, city and county offices had the opportunity to meet one-on-one with the students during the expo and talk about those issues and the ideas on how to improve our local community. And that sums up our Close-Up program, and we will transition into our Latinos in Action program. This program this year was funded through the Title III grant that we have. Did you know that 49.9% of Lee County students are Hispanic? With that drastic growth and changing demographic in Lee County, the LIA program offers our Latino youth an opportunity to develop leadership skills. The class of students should consist of 30% high-performing Latinos who often excel both academically and in extracurricular activities. 40% are students that are not often seen as the leaders and are not really fully engaged with school. They're just many times going through the motions of what school is. The other 30% are ELL students who have the valuable assets but are not applying themselves or given the opportunity to showcase the talents that they have. Latinos in Action offers an asset-based approach to bridging the graduation and opportunity gap for Latino students, working from within the educational system to create positive change. It is a year-long elective course with the goal of empowering Latino youth to lead and strengthen their community. These are the 4 pillars that make up the Latinos in Action program. Students identify and leverage personal, social, and cultural assets. They are excelling in education with students graduating high school and being college and career ready. They are serving our community in weekly literacy tutoring to young students at the elementary school level. And they're developing their leadership skills through committees. One of the essentials of the LIA program is for our students to serve as leaders or committee members to plan service projects, visit college campuses, invite community members to speak about their journey or career development, and schedule cultural events within their school and the broader community. Each class elects a president, secretary, and historian. Then a vice president for each of the committees is selected. Each LIA student gains real-life experience by participating in student-led service, social, and professional communities. We are scaffolding their leadership skills and then infusing the students back into the schools, better prepared to lead and serve. From approximately October to April, LIA students serve as role models, mentors, and literacy tutors for neighboring elementary school students. This partnership helps both parties develop linguistic proficiency, refine social skills, and deepen their understanding of the value of being bilingual, biliterate, and bicultural. This was the first year Lee County hosted the LIA conference at Florida Gulf Coast University. This year's theme was Stronger Together. Students transitioned into different workshops throughout the conference to learn about other Latino journeys to success, financial literacy opportunities, and develop leadership and communication skills. The students were able to showcase their talents through various forms of expression, including dancing, singing, short films, visual arts, and writing. Student winners were awarded scholarships for placing first place in each category. Keynote speaker Richard Montañez from the hit movie Flaming Hot shared his personal journey with the students and inspired them to tap into their individual greatness. We are excited to continue growing the program into next year with 6 new schools coming on board and expanding into 5 elementary schools. Growing up in Los Angeles, Jose began to recognize in high school that very few of his Latino peers participated in rigorous coursework, extracurricular activities, and community service. With the support of his mother, who he credits for his passion and drive, Jose received a wrestling scholarship to Brigham Young University, where he earned his bachelor's degree in education in Spanish, a master's degree in educational leadership, and finally, a PhD in educational leadership. As a teacher and later an administrator, Jose saw again what he'd started to notice as a student in Los Angeles. Latino youth were disengaged and disenfranchised at school. In addition, they often shunned their cultural heritage, which he believes is at the heart of every Latino youth's drive to excel. This gap kept students who could offer the classroom and community a wealth of knowledge, experience, and unique perspectives from graduating high school and college. In effect, this phenomenon kept students from reaching their full potential. Jose recognized the barriers these young Latinos face within their own homes and communities. He saw himself in these students and reflected on the opportunities, experiences, and mentors that had allowed him, a low-income, non-English speaking immigrant, to succeed. The combination of these experiences and reflections led Jose to begin the Latinos in Action program, and he is here with us today to speak to the board and share a few words.
Thank you. Oh, there we go. I want to thank you guys for this opportunity. I just flew in from Chicago last night, very late. We had our 15th conference in Illinois, Aurora, Illinois, yesterday, and it was beautiful. A lot of young people that brought talent and brilliance and celebrating not only everything, all the service they've rendered all year, but also their talent and all the assets they bring to the table. I'm here this morning because when Michael Ramirez calls, you just say, "I'm coming," and you put your sunglasses and you know you're gonna go to Florida. I just want to say, I want our young people to understand the importance of networking as well. As I sit here, and I've met some of you at Florida Gulf Coast at our conference, Kathleen and Debbie and others, I just want to say thank you, because that network, that personal touch, the showing up is critical. It's because of a friend that saw a vision, right, for Florida that we've grown here. And I want our young people to understand that connectivity is so key, especially today. In these days, we don't want to just have them connect through tech, but really connect. And Latinos in Action is a platform for them, not only to connect, but to learn, to grow, to innovate, and also give back. Service to us is huge. There's nothing better to teach a young person from day one than to give back to his or her community. And I truly believe that the greatest leaders across this nation are those who give back. And so at the core of Latinos in Action is helping our youth develop the assets they bring to the table, develop them, first of all, know that they have them, develop them, and then develop them to give back. And I really want to commend this board. It is the first board, and it is the first district that has Latino in 15 states, mind you. We started in Utah because once I wrestled in Utah, I saw the canyons, the rivers, a gentleman fly fishing. I fell in love and stayed, and started Latinos in Action there. That's where our headquarters is, and 150 schools there, and then branched out. But of all the districts, even in Utah, Lee County is the first district that is launching elementary Latinos in Action, middle school Latinos in Action, and high school Latinos in Action. So this is why it's so important that I come here to tell you thank you, because what you're doing is you're investing in these bright, brilliant minds. And I also do want to say that Latinos in Action is not just Latinos, 20% can be non-Latino. We say, come join, come lead with us. Dual language is important. We have a lot of DLI schools that have Latinos in Action and are growing, and we want to share the service and the leadership across the board. I think it's like buoyancy, right? We all come up, we all lead, we all serve. Our theme this year is Stronger Together. Right? We can't do this by ourselves. We need the private sector and nonprofits, everybody within the school, vertical teaming. This is why I love what you're doing, is that it was great to have at the high school in the middle, but what about these littles? And I'm gonna say this, I just want you to know, I have been converted, okay? I am a secondary person. I was a high school teacher, wrestling coach, went into administration, stayed with secondary, didn't want anything to do with elementary or middle. But these 4th and 5th graders, wow, they're hungry for leadership. If you think they get excited to put a yellow jacket on and guide traffic, they can do so much more, and they're eager. They're eager to lead and serve and give back. And I'm so excited about what you're doing and permitting us to help you with and support you in this process. I really believe, and we espouse this, that true leadership doesn't always necessarily come from a position, but from those who can position themselves to serve those who seek. And there are many people in our communities who seek many things, and if we can position ourselves to serve them, we win. Those are real leaders, and that's what we try to help our young people understand. We're here. This is a great country. It's an amazing, beautiful country. I'm originally from El Salvador, raised in LA, but it has done so much to educate me and given me so much. So I want to give back, and I think the best way for me to give back to this country is to build our youth. And I hope that we can do it together. So thank you so much.
All right, we'll move into our last program. I Learn America helps centralize the voices, artistic advancement, and life skills of our immigrant students as they write, share, and artistically activate the stories of their personal lives, while giving teachers, peers, and the broader community an opportunity to listen, learn, and embrace them for who they are. Through the use of the Immigrant Grant, we were able to provide this program to our high school immigrant students that were participating in the Latinos in Action classes. The students engaged with the I Learn America team 3 times throughout the year to help develop their stories. It was broken down into 4 phases to assist them with the creation. Phase 1 and Phase 2 focused on writing and storytelling workshops infused with intensive understanding and awareness. During Phase 3, students channeled their stories towards the production of youth-led, designed, and implemented artistic and educational activations. Lastly, to deepen impact, during Phase 4, students further engaged their peers, younger students, families, and the broader community through arts-based actions and by facilitating a new series of storytelling workshops for other students and familial-like environments that foster solidarity, love, and healing. Phase 4 was activated at the I Learn America Student Showcase. The event was hosted by YPEP, who provided a welcoming space for our families to engage in courageous conversations. It was completely student-driven, from the invitation you see on the screen to the facilitated workshops during the event. Each student was able to display their picture at their school site and decide if they wanted their stories to be published. Today, I am joined by 3 very special students who would like to take the time to speak to the board about their experiences with the programs that we presented today. So I'll begin with Sebastián Alfonso Bautista, who would like to talk a little bit about his experience with the Close-Up program. And I should mention, he's a 11th grade student from Dunbar High School, so he's representing Dunbar today.
So, hi, my name is Sebastian. I'm from Dunbar High School. And my experience from the close-up, I feel like close-up program was something very unexpected, like from a random selection group of people who don't know each other coming together to bring them together as a melting pot. I feel like bringing them together, coming up with issues that they believe that are a problem, and presenting them to the Capitol or to the mayor or local. I feel like these things are a big change to our community, to show our students that there can be a change in our communities, that they can do things, and that they do have a voice. I feel like many people do know problems that the government does not know, but also are too afraid to speak out. With helping to reach the younger generation, I feel like this can empower them to help speak out, and this can help prevent problems further in the future, help solve problems now today, so later in the future we won't have to work together. Because if we're just arguing one another, we're not going to end up nowhere. Coming together, presenting these problems, coming with solutions were a key big thing. And what we did in Tallahassee and in here was very good. This program was also not just like a school, a regular school where we come together, see an assignment, and then do it from there, like how we're taught in our school. The close-up program, also, we had to have background information, come together, see problems, come in with an open mind. We also had to come together with an open mind with the intention to solve problems. So, although not all of us at the close-up all had things to say, but in the end, we learned many things that we can do in our communities to help solve them. These things can help not just our students, but our families all across everywhere in America. They can see that there are things being done, and with just a little bit of hope from the close-up, I feel like this can help spread a positive connection with our community to come back together as a melting pot. So, thank you.
Next up, we'll have Julian Feliciano from Lehigh Senior, an 11th grader, talk about his experience with the Latinos in Action program.
I believe Latinos in Action is an important to our school because a lot of the students don't think their voice matters, when in reality, most schools rely on the students to speak up and voice an opinion to how they feel about the school. But this year for LIA, the motto was Stronger Together, which means that with unity, we are able to create change. This class helped me realize that no matter what you're going through, you can always ask for help, because you never know if someone else might be going through the same thing as you or has previously gone through the same thing as you. So especially for me, as someone who, when I was young, I moved to Puerto Rico and didn't know much Spanish, but I had to try my best to learn Spanish to get through class. I didn't know who to talk to, how to find help in things, so I tend to felt like left out and wouldn't really care much for school. But now that I'm back over here, I've seen that happen to a lot of kids that can't speak English, and they'll just like not care much for class. They'll stay with themselves or in their small groups and not be very interactive in the classes because they feel left out, because a lot of their classes are special or they require extra assistance, which makes them feel excluded from many events. Give me a second. And this one, this year it's my first time ever doing a class like this where I would help others in this way. But we had went to Tortuga to tutor many kids, and those kids, they couldn't speak much English. Some of them could speak English, and others were just only Spanish speakers. But when we first started, it was very awkward and hard to get to speak to these children and like get to know them and just like work through the barrier. But by the end of it, everyone was super friendly, everyone was having conversations, and everyone like opened up to it. And it was very nice to see, because when we first started, a lot of those kids were very quiet, not talkative. And by the end of it, there wasn't a single quiet person or someone by themselves, which was very nice to see, especially in an elementary school segment where you're just, when in elementary, you're meant to have fun and like get that experience from learning and have fun for it. And the LIA conference, which we had gone to, it taught us a lot of valuable lessons and showed that many people do gain from this class and this like events that we have for LIA. It also provides a lot of community service hours, especially for someone like me who is very busy and doesn't have that time to stay after school often. It provided a lot of community service hours for many people like me. And it also, it's the first year that Lehigh Senior Highs had it, and I'm going on to be in the class for the second year as the class president, which is very interesting, and I would like to see how that works, but yes. That is my speech.
And last but not least, we'll have Dolores Gaspar from Young Parent Education Program, a 9th grade student there, talk about her experience with the I Learn America project, and I believe she's also going to read her story that she developed during that time as well.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Dolores. I'm from Guatemala. I came to the U.S. when I was 8 years old with my dad. I have a baby from YPEP, and being here in the U.S. was also a struggle for me because I didn't know how to speak English. But through the time, I started to learn, and yeah, it was really hard, but I got to it. And participating in I Learn America, it was a really enlightening journey for me. It provided me a unique platform to engage with diverse cultures, perspectives, and educational backgrounds. Through this experience, I not only improved my language skills, but I also developed a deeper understanding. And overall, Latinos in Action and I Learn America really gave us a valuable offer and opportunities to express, work in teams, be more going into deeper culture exchanges. And yeah, what we do, we're a small group of girls, so we just try to work and do things at our school. We do service learning and literacy tutoring, partnership, role model, mentors, strategic literacy help with students. We're partnership with Early Childhood Center, where we go and be with little kids, play with them, you know. And also, we would also get the I Learn America team that would come and share their stories, that will also let us share our stories on how we got into, you know, a US and get used to it. So, yep, that's it. I'm sorry. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your time today. That's it for me. As you know, my name is Salita, and here's my email in case you need to reach me afterwards, and I'll open it up now for the superintendent's comments and the school board discussion.
Well, thank you, Salita, and thank you to all of our speakers today, particularly our students as well, just because one of the things we've said as a district and really you as a board really set this expectation to be more inclusive student voice. So here you had 3 student voices about some of these unique programs. It's one thing to hear about a program and a strategy when you see it on a slideshow. It's a whole other thing to hear about the lived experience from our students directly from their mouths in their own words and in their own piece where they can give it voice. And just one thing that always bears mentioning with this body of work we are now in Lee County a majority Hispanic district in terms of our student population. And that is something that often folks in the community don't even realize, is that we are a majority Hispanic district. And just to call it majority Hispanic district really does no service to what that really means. Because while there are some students who will identify as a Hispanic, that represents vast differences in terms of countries of origin, and even within particular countries of origin, tremendous difference in terms of cultural heritage, identity, all these aspects that really add the richness of diversity to our district. And that's just one specific aspect of it. I've always believed that really our diversity collectively as a district, in terms of our students, our staff, and in all the ways in which we are different, is our greatest untapped strength. And this is just one example of many of how we use it. I also just want to take a moment of personal privilege to just shine a light on Mr. Ramirez. So he was mentioned earlier as having the vision to bring some particular elements forward. I just, just the opportunity to work with Mr. Ramirez on a day in, day out basis, and his tremendous leadership in his lived experience in all the different places that he's been, all the different pieces. This really one particular aspect in this presentation was his idea. It was his idea to bring this addition to our district. And so I just really want to credit his leadership, as he was kind of mentioned by a speaker as well, but also that it drives his thinking in his daily leadership work, and with Sawida and some of her tremendous experiences through other districts as well. This is hard work, but it is transformational work. And so while these are just a few examples and you get to hear from students, there are countless other students, and we got to see it at that most recent conference, as you mentioned, FGCU, the enthusiasm, the energy in that piece. All of our student population, while we have this majority Hispanic student population, unfortunately, one of our challenges, less than 20% of our teachers currently are Hispanic. So that's a major opportunity for us to continue to grow and build a pipeline, because with that then comes additional potentially Hispanic leaders that can add to it. It all starts with leadership. And so students having the courage to come forward and talk and speak and share their opinions with us, share their ideas with us, it's leadership that will start to transform our current reality to a desired state of what we all want. So just a major credit to the courage of our students coming up and speak today. Thank you for our visitor. Enrique, Doctor, I really appreciate you coming today as well, and just again shining a light on all this tremendous work, because there's a whole team of folks behind as well who are toiling away every single day trying to help make a difference in our schools. So just a real credit to this work. Those are the comments that I have, and now we will entertain any questions from the board members.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Board members, questions, comments? Ms. Jordan.
I would just like to say thank you so much. I've had the opportunity to attend all of these except for the last one. I've met Jose and actually Sebastian. We had a conversation at Close Up, and when you were speaking about how fighting disrupts your learning, that was really, powerful, because you understood that that was affecting what you were learning and others. And I even believe at that time, when somebody had walked up and said, "Do you understand what insubordination was?" And some of the people within your group had no idea what that word meant. So to me, I thought that was, and we brought that back when they were doing the code of conduct, because of the fact that the language barrier was, very true, because we learned it that day. So I want to thank you for being here again, all of you, for your stories. So thank you.
Ms. Patrica, followed by Ms. Juvenelli.
Ms. Sarmiento, thank you so much for being here. I think I told you when you first came in front of this board how much you blew me away. And I'm going to tell you that I think I challenged the board last time to put our money where our mouth was, to make sure that we were supporting you. When I say you, I mean the work that you're doing and that your department is doing. So I'm not going to put you on the hot seat right now and ask you to answer this question right now, but I would ask for it to be answered through the board update if possible. Are you getting the resources that you need to really do the work that needs to be done in this district? That's my first question. And then my second question, I think, is for the superintendent, not in today's budget update, but in a future budget update. If you could give us the data to show the increase in ELLs over the past 5-10 years, and whether budget increases have kept pace with that increase in population. And I think that will put the board in a good position to determine where our funding is or is not and what changes we need to make. Does that make sense? So now back to happy, fun stuff. You know how to present to a board because you put Dr. Enriquez in front of us, and you, sir, are a rock star. The fact that you wrestled is just amazing. Seriously, I mean, wrestling is, in my opinion, one of the best sport cultures of all sports. And the fact that you wrestled just makes you even that much more impressive to me. And then you bring kids in front of us. You put kids in front of us, and of course we're just gonna love what you have to say. And these kids are amazing. You guys, you rocked it. It's really, really hard to get in front of this board. It's super formal, and we're looking down at you, and we seem scary. We're not. We're very, very grateful to hear your experience. You were just very, very impressive. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Those are my comments for now.
And I'll just credit Michael Ramirez for connecting me with Jose to get him to come here today, because that was his doing. That was his doing, his support. He's helped support these programs, so.
Ms. Giovanelli?
Well, welcome. I just want to say that because this was awesome, and you are our future. The students that spoke, you're our future, and Dr. Enriquez, I just appreciate you because you were that leader and took it way beyond probably what you even thought at the time. And that's what I want these students to be, empowered. You would use the word empowerment, and that's exactly what I want you to be. And we want that because you are our future. Like I said, we sit here and these students that come in fact, I want to know, do you want a job? Because he mentioned that, and I was thinking, okay, we got 3 new teachers right here that we have right in-house, and that's what I would like to see. I would like to see, give you the power and the security that you can do something beyond high school, and we want you back here if we can. So I just want to thank you for coming today and having the guts to do what you did, because we need more of that. You're stronger together, right? And truly, this is an example of that. And Mr. Ramirez, I just want to thank you, because sitting here through all this, I'm going, this all happened because of you. And when Ms. Jordan and I went to the close-up, that was so enlightening, and I couldn't wait to do it again. It was that powerful. Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, Ms. Morgan?
So, Ms. Sarmiento, you have been a transformation agent for this school district. When you first, as Ms. Patrica said, when you first spoke to us, it was, wow. We knew we weren't serving our students well. What you've been able to accomplish just in a year is extraordinary, and I'm really, really grateful to you. I find myself sitting here thinking about these kids and how we interact with kids. And, you know, we have a student advisory, but the student advisory is really selected by the principals. I wonder if, you know, from a real high school or middle school or elementary experience, we're hearing from the broad spectrum of students about how education works for them in this district. So I really don't have a lot to say other than to say you've really got me thinking about how we engage with you and how we learn from you. So those are my comments. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate you. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else before I proceed? Okay. Again, just going to echo Dr. Savage as well as my fellow board member comments. Thank you for being here. I truly enjoyed this presentation. The student representatives, you guys are amazing. I appreciate that. Thank you, Doctor, for coming down to visit with us. Very much appreciated. I will also give a shout out as well, Mr. Ramirez. I've been seeing him, over the last year and a half, and has done so much in this community, and I truly appreciate it, sir. As well as Director Sarmiento, thank you. All the community events that we see you all around and what you're doing for the district, we appreciate it. So without any other comments, we're going to move on. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the teachers that are here with their students and administrators. Thank you for coming, and for my team, of course, because they support the schools, and I only have a vision. I need people to believe in it and work with me, so I can't do it without them as well.
Okay. Moving on, we'll be going to agenda item number 3, which will be the fiscal year 2025 budget update. And whenever we make the change over up there, please proceed, Dr. Savage.
Yes, just happy to introduce our Dr. Amy Desmore, our Chief Financial Officer, as well as Ms. Kelly Letcher, our Director of Budget, as they prepare today to bring those things forward. But also just wanted to highlight for the board members who had those questions, they are noted. So we'll be providing some responses on those, which some of them involve budget. We won't do that for them today, but we certainly will get those. All right, when you are ready over there, Dr. Desmore, Ms. Letcher. No, not yet.
There we go. Good afternoon, Dr. Savage, members of the board, and we are here to provide a budget update for you this afternoon. Unfortunately, probably not nearly as exciting and satisfying as the presentation that you just saw, but we'll do our best to provide you some information that we believe that you need to know today. So we are focusing our talk today on capital revenue assumptions and the school allocations. There was, as you all know, a very new process this year that we used. We had discussed it with you briefly before, but we wanted to come today to really give a breakdown of what that is, what that means, how schools are working with it right now, and as well give a little preview of capital revenue. We will, of course, be doing a full-blown presentation for capital at a later date, but we have some preliminary information that certainly we want to share with you as soon as we have it. So that being said, I will turn it over to Ms. Letcher to take us through the conversation today.
Thank you. And it's definitely not as good as the last one. I was trying to think how I could bring kids up here for the budget thing to make it a little bit more exciting, because this is definitely not as exciting. So we wanted to talk about a couple of things on the revenue updates for our capital. We have 3 main areas that I wanted to focus on today. What was our capital outlay millage, our sales tax, and our impact fees. So I wanted to focus on those 3. That they're our main source of funding for the capital, and we've seen some major changes, and we wanted to bring it to your attention because it will affect our capital plan moving forward. So in FY24, we approved a capital plan, and I'm going to start with the capital outlay millage. And in that capital plan, we had estimated in FY25 we would receive millage funds of $221 million, which was a 6% increase over the FY24 amount. When we got our tax roll in July, it did not pan out that way. The tax roll only increased 4.24%. So based on that, we're only going to be receiving about $217 million. Now, that being said, remember this was a preliminary number. My final number won't be in until July 19th, so you'll have that final number right before the tentative budget is presented to you. In this form, you'll have it prior to that in the papers, but that will be the final number. But right now, we're looking at about a $3.7 million decrease in this year. Based on the decrease this year, we looked at how we projected forward, and previously we had been projecting about a 6% increase all the way through 29, and from there we went to 5%. Based on the changes, we have redone our projections, and we're now looking at 3% increase for 26 and 27, and then a 4% in 28 and 29. So overall, in the capital millage, we're looking at about an $82.5 million decrease over the next 5-year period over what we had projected in FY24. So that's our capital millage piece. Then we go to sales tax. So Sales tax, what we've seen is a slowing in our collection rate of sales tax. We are about 3 million down from where we believed we would be at this time in FY24 for our sales tax collections. When we do our projections, we also go to the economic and demographic research and look at what they're saying as well. They're also predicting a slowdown in sales tax. For 25, they were looking at a 0.87% decline in sales tax revenue. And then they show a slow growth returning of 1.9 to 2.86 up through FY29. So looking at our collections and looking at what they're projecting, we are decreasing our projection for FY25 from $129.7 million to $122.6 million. So we're going to be decreasing our projection about $7 million. This also affects what we are doing for our out years. We had been projecting about a 2.5% in 26 to a 3% for the remainder of our sales tax time period. We're reducing that to a 1% in FY26 and 2% in the final 3 years of our sales tax. So overall, in sales tax, from our projection from the current plan, we're looking at about $46 million decrease in the sales tax revenue through the end of the tax period. So the numbers I'm giving you, please remember, as adjustments are made and we see increases, decreases, we'll still be doing more, but this is what we're looking at right now.
And just to add a little bit to that, just making sure that everyone is on the same page in terms of revenue from 1 year, from FY24 to FY25, or throughout the 5 years in the plan, is still increasing year upon year. What's decreasing is the estimates that we had in our current capital plan. So that difference of that total reduction of $178.7 million in the next 5-year plan is kind of what we are planning on, based on making sure that we are sufficiently conservative in our revenue projections.
So the last area that I wanted to focus on is impact fees. So on our impact fees, we are seeing lower collections. In FY24, we collected about $2.4 million less than what we had projected. And in the current year, our collections are down about $9 million. We think we might have one more collection coming in, but we're not sure when we would receive that. So based on that, we're looking at decreasing our impact fee projections for the years as well. We had currently projected FY25 to be about $36.9 million. We're now dropping that to about $30 million based on the collections that we're seeing now. In the out years, we had estimated about 5% through FY28 and then 3% in the years beyond that. We're changing that to 1.5% in FY26 and then 2% in the out years. Over the 5-year period of the capital plan for 25, that would be about a $50.1 million reduction overall. So when you look and you add all of these pieces up, that's where we're looking over the 5-year capital plan of a reduction of about $178.7 million. So we wanted to catch you up on, what we were looking at with that capital plan. So this is going to have a drastic effect on what we're able to do with capital dollars. The capital committee has been meeting and is meeting regularly, trying to adjust the plan to fit within these dollars and making sure that we still can have student stations and maintenance of our schools and things. We are working on that plan, and we hope to bring that back to you in June with the operations division, so that you can see what we're going to be recommending at that time. And again, we will continue to monitor these numbers and keep you updated if we're seeing additional increases or decreases. So that's the bad news. Now the good news. So we'll move on to the school allocations. So we met with you all before on our last update, and we had talked to you about the new allocation formulas that we were doing for schools. It has now been sent out to schools. For the most part, we've heard very good feedback from schools. They like the flexibility that it provides them. It is a little bit more responsibility for them, and they're accepting that with open arms. It's been a great time working with them through this. So as you know, previously, our allocations were formula-based. So for positions, you got certain positions based on a formula, and then they were provided some flexible dollars they could do some things with, and then we gave them money for supplies. The new formula is driven strictly off their student population, and they get a dollar amount with some requirements. In your packet for today, there was a list of the required items that they must do, things like meet class size, have a principal for the school, and things like that. Then they had things that were recommended, that based on the different areas in academic services and things that need to be done, there were recommendations that they needed to, probably follow, make sure that they were meeting those recommendations to serve the student populations appropriately. And then there were some little notes on the side too of things they could do, and she put it up on the screen so you could see that. So what we thought we would do today is kind of walk you through what this funding formula for a school looked like. Amy, we'll get to it. It's a separate, there you go. So basically, the schools received in their file something that looked like this. So it has the programs, the program numbers, the FTE that was projected for their school, and then the weighted FTE, so the weights that were added to that based on that student population. It came down to a dollar amount that is funded for that school. We looked at some things as we were going through there. Of course, we get ESE guarantee and class size, so we gave them additional funding based on the class size dollars we receive and ESE guarantee dollars that we receive. The other thing we did as we were going through that process is when we had schools with very high, and this fits right in with the conversation before, higher than the average ESOL population, we realized that the funding that we got from the state probably was not going to be able to serve those students with that high ESOL population the way they needed to be. So we worked a formula up to give them an additional on top of ESOL allocation in order to help support that level of students. So if their weighted FTE or their FTE for the ESOL population was above the average for that group of grade levels, they received an additional allocation to help with that population of students. Also, if they were a small school, small schools do not generate enough money to handle even the required things that they need to have. So we provided an additional allocation for a small school. And then for one school in particular, we have what we call a very small school allocation that we had to provide additional on top of as well in order to help them meet some of the requirements and the needs of the kids at the school. The other thing when we were going through this, in the 254 and 255 level of services, that's our exceptional student education. Those are mainly our self-contained classrooms. What we realized is with the current way that we serve our students, we are not generating enough dollars to provide the teacher and the para for those classrooms. So we decided that we would look at providing a teacher and a para for that classroom, no matter what their funding was. Then we would back out the funding that they receive if it was less than what we were providing, and they would get that above for that in order to have a teacher and a para in those self-contained classrooms. And we're also working with our ESE and Academic Services Department to look at the service model, delivery model that we have, and making sure that that is the appropriate delivery model that we should be providing. We're also looking at the funding level of the students in those classrooms to make sure that if they're in those classrooms and they're receiving those extra supports, that their IEPs are showing it and their cost factors are reflecting it. So that is another area that we're looking at to make sure that we are driving the right FTE for the services we're providing to kids. So then they came to a total dollar amount for their school. And then we would go and we have some add-ons that we do above that. So if they're a school, an art school, we would provide an additional art allocation. If there's some other things that are going on in the schools, we have some special programs. We would provide additional on top of that to help with those special programs. Educational enrichment, or our old SAI. So we run a 3-year average of the levels of the students, and we provide an additional allocation through our educational enrichment dollars in order to help provide additional supports for those lower level students. That dollar's added in there. If it's a high school and they have an IB and they generate dollars, it would be on here for AP or ACE or CAPE. All of those industry certification would all show up here for them to come to a total allocation amount for that school. And that's the pot of money and the dollar amount that they would have to work with. And then they would see on some backup documentation how much was generated in each of the areas so that they would know, what was generated, how much they really should be looking at to work with their ESOL population, to work with their ESE population and things like that. So that is the funding model that we used for the schools. Now, this is the first year we're working through things. Our academic services team is working closely with the schools to make sure that they're meeting their requirements, that they're serving the population the way they should be serving the population, and keeping it going. And every Monday, I meet with the academic services team and we go over any request or anything that has come up from the schools and have discussions and work through problems and things as they arise. So with this process, we're continuing to work throughout the summer to make sure that the numbers that we projected for them are lining with the student population that appears to be showing up. If they're having more kids than what we thought, we're upping their allocation so that they can have resources in place on the first day of school when the kids get there. We will look again at day 10. That is not a different process. We have always pooled on day 10 where the schools are and realigned the resources based on where the actual students are showing up. And then this year, we're looking after the October FTE survey to see where the kids are and looking at making another adjustment at that point to align with where the kids are at that time. So with that, I am done with my presentation. I'd like to turn it back over to the superintendent and to the board.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Letcher, and thank you, Dr. Desmore, in terms of that so far. I actually just want to ask one question, just to both of you, if you don't mind addressing this. That was basically on average, because I know this was a big change in going from the prior model to this new model that is really based on the actual projections of students that they'll have based on that per student basis. In all, I know that there was a variance on both sides. So some schools came out basically, had they utilized the prior year model, some schools came out below, some schools came out ahead. All in all, how did the schools fare in this? Was it more schools were, coming out ahead, more resources or less, just so that there's that context of understanding? Because I understand with the new model, folks sometimes need to learn it. How are they ensuring they're doing it correctly? Applying that just in general, because I know you did track that. What was the totality of that?
Yes, so thank you for that question. We should have included that information. So the new allocation was structured overall to drive more resources into schools. So as Dr. Savage said, that looked different for different schools. There were some that were up, some that were down, dependent on their projections, their populations, their circumstances in their schools. But overall, this was a richer projection for schools to the tune of, I believe, over 20 million, if I remember correctly, through the comparison of what it would have been under the old method given our projection this year.
Yes, and that also reflects some of the adjustments of additional resources that you've added to these schools through this process of trying to request and receive additional, or is that excluding that?
It's excluding that because we're still working through that process now. So that excludes that.
So the reason I asked that question was just for the board to be aware of that. Number one, because this model represents a real interest in driving more dollars to the schools, which you can hear, but you sometimes may hear occasionally throughout visiting schools and so forth. I'm having less, there's less for it. I wanted to make sure you knew that there was that variance, that there are in some cases schools that simply were essentially, for lack of a better word, being overfunded, that they were receiving a lot more resources than what their students actually generated. And so this model kind of trues that method, but that all in all, it actually did result in a significant increase to the tune of $20 million, which is a substantial investment of the district budget into additional resources to those schools, but also that above and beyond that, you are still continuing to take those on a case-by-case basis and try to work through those different situations. I just want to make sure that there was an awareness of that as a governance team, so you are fully aware of that, as well as any other questions you may have about capital revenue or the school-based allocations. We'll entertain those questions at this time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Savage. Board member comments, questions? Ms. Morgan, followed by Mr. Persons, followed by, I believe, Ms. Patrica.
Thank you. So, I guess the question on the capital dollars is why? Have you had conversations with economic development or the tax collector to get a sense of what's causing the drop off? I mean, everything you read about Lee County is everybody's moving here, they should be spending money. There's still a lot of construction going on. I recognize that interest rates are higher and that does have an impact, but I just don't get the sense from, generally that, Lee County has plateaued. And so I'm just curious whether you've heard anything from them about what might be responsible for this.
Haven't had any specific conversations with them, but I think, overall, the information is not necessarily that the growth still isn't relatively healthy, because it is, if we're talking about a little over 4% increase in a tax roll for next year, especially given everything that just happened with us going through a hurricane, or that sales tax revenue is still from one year over next growing, but just not necessarily at the same, more accelerated rate as what we were projecting before. And so while it still kind of shows a healthy growth, we knew that we over our 5-year plan, we felt like we needed to scale back to be conservative based on the indications that we're seeing from those places.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, I appreciate that. I guess the other question I would have is impact fees. Again, given all of the development that's taking place, I'm really surprised. I mean, you're still not at 100%, right? We have not met with the county commission. We have not talked to them about impact fees. Maybe it's time to reopen that conversation. I mean, it's, we've fully recovered. There is all of this development taking place, and the county commission is just sitting there. As long as we don't say anything, they're not going to give us any money. So those are my questions about the budget. With respect to the school allocation, this is a huge lift for principals and academic services, huge. So how are we going to sort of keep track from a feedback point, evaluate and feedback point of view from both the schools and academic services as we go through the year? I am concerned about the academic services piece. I mean, some principals have a lot more experience doing this and than others, and there is bias. As soon as you take away the guardrails, bias comes in. So I don't want to be negative. I think it's fantastic that we're doing this, but there will be some abuse of the system, and I just want to make certain that we've got somebody's watching the allocations and to ensure that they're having the impact that we intend when we provide them. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing to that, one of the things on our Monday meetings when I meet with academic services is when we get the files in from the schools, my staff is looking to see, have they met the recommended resources for different areas, and if they have not, that is part of our discussion with the executive directors on our Monday meeting, so that they can have those conversations with those administrators to see what their plans are to make sure they meet the services that the students are needed. If they're feeling like the schools are feeling like they're having difficulty with that, and especially like where ESE is, it pertains to, our ESE department is working with them on their scheduling models, like looking at every student's IEP, making sure that they have them scheduled appropriately with the staff that needs to be done. So we are looking at that and keeping track of that with them on, from our side. If we see that it doesn't look like they're appropriately doing it, we'll mention it, then they'll call the schools and have those conversations. So we're hoping that between our checks and balances and their checks and balances, we are making sure that we're providing the services that are supposed to be provided, and then hopefully we'll see increase in our academic achievement.
Your point is well taken, and, absolutely. We understand, what that concern is or what the point is, and it is a lot for principals, for academic services, for us. I know when we rolled it out, and I wasn't even the one taking the bulk of the phone calls and the emails, I felt like I was hit by a rather large bus. There was a lot. It was a lot of questions, a lot of communication, a lot of contact, and I know that our budget staff felt that way, and I can imagine academic services felt that way as well, because there was a lot of individually working with people, and those checks and balances take a lot of time and a lot of work on people's behalf. So will it necessarily be perfect this time? I'm gonna say probably not, but we are trying to put those things in place that Kelly was just talking about that will help us to monitor the things that we feel like need to be monitored, and those things that you were talking about, to ensure that, resources are utilized as most appropriate. And absolutely, we will absolutely depend on our academic services partners to help us understand what those things are, because the numbers are one thing, but how those numbers actually help the rubber meet the road is something totally different, where that expertise for us is critical.
Mr. Persons?
Yeah, I also had some questions on the projections there. I understand the tax roll, everything is increasing in value, so that's a good part of it. But there's a lot of the properties, lost their houses, and we got all this new development. And when they're finished, then they get added to the tax roll. And that, I see so much, and I'm not an expert, but I've been to a lot of seminars, and just all the rebuilding going, I think you will do better, maybe not in the 5-year estimate than you're looking at, but I appreciate you being conservative there. Sales tax revenue, pretty much same thing up and down. I know it is pretty healthy overall, but the impact fees, that's the one that bothers me the most, because again, I think we need to talk to the county commission. And I also think the 5 years is pretty conservative, because they pay their impact fees probably the same way when they're finished. They don't pay up front, so with all the construction I'm seeing, the only thing I can see in the 5-year plan that would slow that down would be the permitting process. There's some of these developments that have not yet been permitted don't go forward. And I think that really will be more in the 5 to 10 year projection. But in the next 5 years, I see so much being built that'll come online that I think that's also conservative in just the next 5 years. But again, I appreciate you being conservative. That's all.
Ms. Patrica?
Thank you. If we can keep it here on slide 2. This is going to sound like a really stupid question, but I don't understand the numbers. It appears as if we are using 5-year capital revenue, 5-year sales tax revenue, 5-year total impact fee for a bottom line of a 2025 capital plan. Right?
Well, that's because when we present the capital plan to you, it will be presented for the 5-year plan as the FY25 capital plan. So it'll be for the 25 and 5 years out.
Okay.
So it's over that whole time period is why I wanted you to realize that between what you approved for 24 and what you approved for 25 will be less that amount over that 5-year period.
Perfect. All right, that makes sense. And then if we can go to the next slide, I think this is a question for, no, that's
Yep.
the one where you showed the small school thing?
There
There it is. Thank
Okay.
you. This is a question, I think, for Dr. Savage. Could you tell us what that small school amount is for all of our small schools? That's the first question. The second question is, in order to keep this on our radar as a board, we entered into an agreement with a specific small school and their community. Where do we stand in terms of meeting the expectations in that agreement? I know it's early, but I'd like to know, has a committee been formed? Are they meeting actively? Are we and they taking steps toward the goals set forth in that plan? I think it's really important to keep that on our radar on a regular basis, because I was willing to have that small school allocation, so to speak, going toward that school for a very finite period of time, knowing that in the end, either we would be growing population or they would be taking it over as a charter, or we'd be going in a different direction. So I don't want that to fall off our radar.
I appreciate you asking. I think this team can actually address part of the question, which was, because obviously the school model that you had in front of you, you can see by FT is over 1,000 students. So this one wouldn't have that. But had this been a small school, would you mind at least speaking without going into a specific school, because there are a number of small schools, and then you referenced one very small school. So can you just reference that methodology of how you apply that to that particular sheet? Because it would show up right on the one that's on the screen. You can see where that additional allocated dollar value would be there, but can you explain how that occurs to our presenters?
Let me try to pull it up.
Give me a second.
Yeah. If you give us just a second to pull those up, we will tell you.
And while they're doing that, I can answer the second part of the question, which is, yes, there was a recent meeting with the school that I believe you were mentioning. We do have some information on that. Obviously, that's not this particular presentation, but we'll make sure to share something in this week's board update on that. We already did on the prior, but for this particular one, if there's anything additional beyond that, because it did highlight some of that, if there's any board member questions in reviewing that information that you'd want, we could certainly make that additional clarification in this upcoming board weekly as well, since that meeting just occurred and there was dialogue around those very issues. I'm hoping I bought enough time for our presenters to get into the specific allocation for the small school piece.
Ms. Patrica?
Yeah.
Are you?
I'm good.
Okay, Ms. Morgan, if you have something brief, if you want to go back on.
Yeah, so that was all in Adam Malloy's report that was in the Board Weekly Update. The cost per pupil numbers were there, so we've already got them.
Yes.
And it's an interesting report.
Okay. Board member comments, questions, any others? Okay, can I go ahead and ask mine then? If everyone's okay. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it. Kind of thinking through things. We talk about the reductions, obviously. I mean, I'm not an expert at this. I'm just kind of hypothesis. There's a board member next to me that's more skilled and understands that, but I wonder about some of our values of sales softening a little bit, not the amount, but the taxable value of it and that effect going forward, that we're still building a lot, but it might not be worth quite as much moving forward. I wonder if that is maybe part of that. So in regards to that, with a capital plan moving forward, and I'm assuming we're doing this, I'd like to, we can hopefully address that and make sure we're updating it, because I think we'll have to make some real hard decisions soon. I just want to make sure we're on the more, like everyone's talked about, the conservative side, and if we end up with more later on, great, but make sure we're prepared for the future so we're not overshooting on anything. So, and I believe that's the sentiment I've gotten from the superintendent as well before. So next thing, budget. I appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. I've gotten a lot of the school budget, excuse me. So one of the things that I've gotten some feedback on in regards to that. So, I've heard a lot of positive things about the form, but, one of the things, and I've expressed this to the superintendent as well, is there's certain schools, and I'm glad you said this case by case, that have different needs than some of the other ones. And I know that has come up, or, sometimes the phrase, what makes X school isn't possible as much per se. That's something that I've heard come up a couple times, but I'm glad that that's being addressed in regards to some of these case-by-case basis. But I don't know if anyone else has heard that, but I just wanted to make sure that was out there. So
I'm sorry, could you say that again? If you said what the difference of what makes what school?
So there's I guess a quote that I've heard a couple times. Whatever makes ABC school isn't as possible now with maybe said budget, but I know this is maybe early in the process. I know you guys have also given some more recent guidance on things, so I just wanted to make sure. I don't know if any other board members had heard that, but I wanted to make sure that was out there. It's something that I've addressed with Dr. Savage, so it's just some feedback I've heard. I just wanted you guys to be aware of. So, but I appreciate, I know you guys have been, in updates, and I appreciate that. So, the small schools thing that was already addressed, essentially that's all I had. So, Ms. Jordan, if you want to.
Just based on what you had just mentioned, when I'm out there and I'm asking them how do they like receiving all of it, the majority of the ones that I have spoken with, they said they liked it because of the fact that they can really look at it now throughout the year and figure out what their needs are. So I haven't really heard any negatives on it yet, but it's more of, it gives them the power to really do a budget for their schools. So I just wanted to share that tidbit with you as well.
Okay, all right, great.
Anyone else? Dr. Savage?
Just to help close out, and just to, give voice to those two comments. So that's why it was real important when we let off the conversation. I wanted to make sure there's an awareness that while some schools come out ahead, and essentially what that would mean is they're getting more resources than what they were earning before, which gives them new opportunity to support their students in new and unique ways. For schools that in theory are seeing a decrease, what that essentially means is that they were getting more resources per student than what they were actually generating. So that means the district additionally in its aggregate was picking up was providing more resources to those schools. So the example of the small school that's been mentioned and so forth is an example of that, and more of an extreme nature. But some of these schools that saw this loss of funding, it's strictly because the change in student either this year or a prior year. And what I wanted to give voice to is when you make a massive migration in methodology, you can expect there will be some schools that are negatively impacted. And that's why I wanted to give additional attention to the fact that you're still addressing those schools on a case-by-case basis to assist them with this transition year and some of those unique things that have to be done this year to help them make a successful transition for their students. So thank you both. Did you have anything else you want to add on the method for the small school?
I do, yes. My apologies for taking a minute to find it. The value for small school was we ended up allocating $2,500 per FTE for, in the case of elementary schools, for an elementary school that was anything under 800. As we looked at the formulas and the numbers, it seemed like that 800 mark was about the point where a school was really generating the funds that they needed to work. So $2,500 per FTE for any school, elementary school under 800, but it's capped at 200, right? Max of 200 kids, you're going to get that $2,500 for, with the exception of a super small school we have, which went up to 300. Okay. 300 students times that 2,500, right?
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from Dr. Savage or the board? Okay. Dr. Desamores, Ms. Letcher, thank you for your hard work. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for the feedback.
Next up on the agenda is agenda review for May 23rd, 2024. Whenever you're ready, Dr. Savage.
It would be my honor, Chairman. So we had one board member question that officially came through our channel, and that was from the consent under executive services, was approval of expenditure for ITN number N237 438JA, which was for marketing services. The question came in, what was the total cost paid for this contract last year? Why the increase of $12,580 from last year's amount of $422,420? So it's important to know that the balance of the expenditures from this particular piece for fiscal #24 is a $170,336, of which $252,000 has been spent this past year. This represents the totality, not just in a particular department, but across the organization. So there are individual department requests that have increased, while others that have actually decreased. And so we're also going to provide this chart that I'm going to just kind of tell you about now, but we'll provide this to the board members so you have this as well. It's an individual breakdown by the departments. So for example, the recruitment increased theirs from $57,420 to $65,000. So that's a slight increase there. Whereas the grants department actually decreased their request from $197,000 down to $152,000. Sometimes some of those magnet grants and so forth, they allow for marketing materials and so forth. So that represents a decrease. Whereas other departments, including our schools, so that the catch-all was all the schools, increased from $50,000 to $100,000 as a result of schools having individual marketing work throughout the year. So we'll get you that data table that actually summarizes that $12,000 difference, so you have a breakdown, not just my explanation, but also that specific breakdown, if that works for the board members.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Just while I'm on it, because there wasn't a specific question, I want to make sure all the board members, we're producing just a memo that's just on a response of an item that will be coming through personnel. You'll be receiving that forthcoming. We just received some information yesterday, late afternoon, bringing some issues to light relative to personnel appointments, so forth. So we wanted to do some digging on that. So we've had a number of folks working on putting together some information that we'll be able to share with all of you board members, such that you have that information about any potential appointments and so forth coming tonight, and just the facts we were able to gather in short order.
Thank you, Dr. Savage. Anything else in regards to tonight's agenda from board members? Okay. At this moment, we're going to move on to good of the order, and just as reference, we don't have a briefing today, so I will start with, I'll go at the far end, Ms. Morgan.
Okay, comments. So first of all, I loved the K-5 Title I summer school math kits. My only question there is it's heavily dependent on parent engagement. So is it available in multiple languages? And then congratulations to Danielle Reddy, a former AVID student who is now a teacher and will be presenting at a national conference on the AVID program. So just wanted to acknowledge her. I want to thank Adam Malloy for his update on the Fort Myers Beach Ad Hoc Committee meeting. It is clear that is going to be a struggle for them, and they are increasing their expectations for our role in supporting their enrollment increases, or efforts to increase enrollment. Congratulate the school district for receiving a $12 million 5-year competitive grant from the U.S. DOE Magnet Schools Assistance Program that will help specific programs develop uniquely for Bonita Springs Elementary, Edgewood, and Hector Cafferata. So that's great. Thank you to the grants department and to the schools for putting in the work necessary to get those done. I never gave you the insurance task force report. They run their fiscal year February to February, so they actually incurred costs this past year 4.4% below revenues, so they ended up with a surplus of $4.8 million. Their 24-25 projections assume a slightly lower enrollment with a projected insurance cost of $109.7 million, employee contributions 10.1, employer cost is 99.6. The overall assumptions presume a slight enrollment decrease and increased employee contribution, which is associated with the plan change to include students or children. Board member persons, at our workshop, you made a comment about the greatest need of the district is for a qualified teacher in each classroom. So I learned something when I was at the Bonita Elementary community meeting. A teacher, Eric Kelly, is leaving Bonita Elementary. As you all know, Bonita Elementary is a high poverty Title I school with a significant ESL population. Last year, Mr. Kelly's fifth grade class had a math class, had a 67% passing rate. He is going to Collier for a salary increase of $10,000, in part because he's receiving credit for his charter school experience. We are not recruiting or retaining on a level playing field. We are not going to have a qualified teacher in every classroom if we don't address the bottom line problem. I'm bringing this up now because I'm first on the list, but I think it's something for a conversation after everybody's had an opportunity. When exactly are we going to have a board conversation about the board attorney's request for a contract review? As far as I'm concerned, you know, the contract can be opened for things like title change, but we're waiting for Evergreen to come in with numbers, number one. Number two, it's been understood by this board all along that the Evergreen may call for increases in job categories, but that they will not be implemented in the first year because financially we can't handle it. So I think any contract renewal with respect to the board attorney or the board attorney staff has to be looked at in that context, and I don't think we're there yet. And I don't understand why John Quick is asking us to designate somebody to negotiate a contract when we as a board haven't even had a conversation at the board table about the board attorney contract. So those are my comments for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Do you want me to address the prior topic now, or would you everyone prefer after? Okay.
Go ahead.
Just so you're aware, I had a brief conversation with Mr. Quick, essentially saying that until we discuss anything as a board as the future, we're not, just so you're aware of that. And I've let Attorney Dupree Bruno know that as well. That's basically, I said, nothing has been decided. You know, nobody's been given anything at this moment. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, so.
Thank you.
So, okay, and, you know, I agree. We will need to have that discussion at some point, so. But I just wanted to add that process, at least from what I was informed, so. Thank you. Ms. Langford Fleming.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you to all the presenters today. I will not be in physical attendance this evening, so I'm going to go ahead and give my congratulations to the class of 2024. I think it is the most exciting piece of this job is to see all the hard work of our children and our families and their educators and all of the support they've had throughout their basically 13 years in school, if not more, and come to fruition. So it's incredibly satisfying. And some of my favorite parts of graduation aren't just the kids hooping and hollering and I love the cap toss. Dr. Cuban McCoy probably got to see how excited I was about that. But I love seeing the faces of the families and the pride that you see of their guardians, their families, their grandparents. I know that we had to adjust our graduations. Thank you to the flexibility of families and schools and the district and everybody trying to be everywhere. I think there are a couple of things we might need to discuss regarding some graduation ceremonies, and perhaps next year, I don't know if this is something that we can, you want to give the schools flexibility because our schools are unique in each of its own, but at the same time, somewhat of a structure as to how the ceremony should run. For example, I know for myself, I've waited 13 years to watch my young man walk down to pomp and circumstance in the aisles, and that's just a part of it. And just something as simple as that all the way down, just like a small, like these are the requirements, and then you can sort of use that creatively amongst your own school. But that was just something that occurred this year that I had witnessed. And I don't know about our 2 venues, loved having them there, but traffic, I got several phone calls about the traffic, because I know as one school's leaving, another school's coming in, trying to get their seats, so maybe that's something we need to work on. And I know, like I said, we had to be very flexible in adjusting our schedules for graduation. But awesome, I can't even keep track of all the things I've been at in the last 10 days. Thank you to GCE, I believe is the sponsors for yesterday's barbecue. It was great to see staff, and it smelled so good. I don't know how you got back to work that day, yesterday, but that was, for people partnering with our school district, I'm very grateful for that. The Learning for Life, I would like to hire the Steel Drum Band for an event. All of them were so great, but I just love Steel Drum Band, so I was drawn to the outside, and I stood out there for a long time listening to them, so thank you. And then last but not least, I want to wish our staff, our teachers, our principals, a safe and fun summer, as well as our students and families. I do hope that everyone gets the required rest that they need and know that they are appreciated for a successful 23-24 school year. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Langford Fleming. Mr. Persons?
I just want to talk about 2 of my smaller graduations. We'll start off with the Buckingham exceptional students. We had 3 come across the stage, and that was probably the high point of my week. It was great. And then I got to go see my grandson go from kindergarten to 1st grade. That was just as great a thing, okay? And he got his nice medal. So it was, as they all did, and it was great. So it was just a wonderful event at Bayshore that they had at the church next door. So those are my 2 that I'm talking about now, and they were just awesome. I'll talk about the 3 big high schools later tonight. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Persons. Ms. Jordan?
Well, I think that Ms. Langford Fleming covered it all. Thank you. We've been very busy. I don't even know what happened in the last 2 weeks, but I know it's like every minute, every day, we have been somewhere celebrating our children, our students, our staff, our administrators, just everyone, and just thank you all for everything that you do. Even the parents, just everybody. It was just a little bit tiresome, but it was well worth it, and I'd do it all over again. And even today, I was at Calusa Middle, where they were celebrating Paul's Claus Day, where the kids earned all these dollars, and they were out there trying to hit the ball to the dunk tank, which I was sitting there going, Jesus, I could be in there right now. It was hot out there. And the gentleman who was in there, he was excellent, really, really egging these kids on for these, to try to hit them. And it took them forever to knock them in. You just wanted to go over there and help them out and hit that button. I did not do that, but I really felt like, oh, I need to help them. But the sheriff's department, for the city of Cape Coral was out there, the fire department was out there tossing the bucks down to the kids, and they have earned this all year. And then today was their celebration for that. So I just think that all the schools, really need to celebrate. And actually, couple more weeks, Franklin Park will be moving into the new school and out of the trailer manufactured, whatever you want to call them. So I'm really excited for that. And just thank you, everybody. We're a great team. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Ms. Patrica?
Thank you. So my apologies to the board and to staff for missing the ad hoc committee update. I am going to blame it on the fact that I haven't looked at the update yet. I had 2 kids that graduated on Saturday, and I'm still in that mindset. And I am exhausted, not just from their graduation, but from the others that I attended. I told many people this is the happiest time of year. I know that that's a saying that usually goes along with Christmas and Hanukkah, but genuinely, being in the education field, this is the happiest time of year for me. My face hurt by the end of the 4th graduation ceremony not because I was faking a smile, but because genuinely, honest to God and true, every kid that walks across that stage makes me smile, because they each experience it differently. Some girls' heels are too high and they're trying not to fall and they're terrified of that. I had one girl who dropped her, it's actually a young woman, who dropped her diploma, and as soon as she dropped it, she said that didn't just really just happen, did it? It was just, she was clearly nervous to walk across the stage, you know, and then others, whatever. It is genuinely the best time of year. I feel really, really badly for Mr. Estes, because when his graduation ceremony was over, I may or may not have shed a tear, because I had 2 boys who walked across the stage, and I think Mr. Estes had no idea what to do with a crying Patrika. So I felt a little bit badly for him, but I quickly regained my composure. The schools, for the most part, in my opinion, really, really did a good job. I agree with Mrs. Langford Fleming that it's important for us to maintain the dignity of the ceremony, because a lot of our kids, this is the first time anyone in their family is experiencing this, and while the hooping and the hollering and the clapping is all great, it is a massive achievement and it is a massive milestone. I just wrote an article for my other day job about the necessary financial and legal things that we have to help our kids do. Why? Because they're graduating from high school and they've turned 18. This is a massive milestone. And so keeping that dignity to me is really, really important. Moving on, congratulations to Dr. Bernier, the new superintendent of Duval County. Lee County's loss is most certainly their gain. Through the chair to Dr. Savage, may I share that Bonita Springs Elementary timeline with people in the community, the one that was in the board member update?
I don't see why not. I believe it would, I mean, first off, when we produce it, it's a record, it's now a public record, so
Understood,
I would say
but
I'd rather have that, but thank you for, I wasn't given to me with any kind of preconditions of internal use only, no confidentiality, so yes, you would be free to do it. I would ask that if we were going to do any kind of broad distribution where it's like media would not, we give us one more look at it, because it's obviously preferred as internal information, but that said, if you would want to share it, I think it was always preserved with that kind of intent that it could be shared.
Okay, and you know, I mentioned to you at a graduation over the weekend that I've gotten a lot of inquiries from the community about Bonita Springs Elementary and the historic building there. We also got an email from
Jesse Bordeaux.
Yes. Do you have a follow-up? Is something scheduled there?
I don't have an answer to it yet, but it is definitely something I'm aware of. I'm aware of the request. I just would want to circle back before, just because there's a number of folks involved. So
That's fine.
we'll get you a response on that.
Excellent, thank you.
Sorry, could you repeat what you,
I
don't think we heard that.
Congressman Donalds, it doesn't Jesse Perdone work for him?
No, he's a city
Yes.
council member.
Oh, I thought he worked for
Bonita
him.
City
Well,
Council.
he may, but he's also a Bonita City Council member.
Okay, so a Bonita
And by the
City
way,
Council
I
member.
did send the letter out to some people.
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right, good.
Yeah.
So there was a request made for another public meeting. A public meeting has already taken place, but for another public meeting surrounding Bonita Springs Elementary School. And the request was sent to Dr. Savage, so I was just following up to see whether that meeting was taking place. And then finally, for the board, some data has been gathered and presented to the board. Conversations have taken place in one-on-ones regarding moving down to 1 meeting a month. You know, unfortunately for Dr. Savage, I said, do you think staff can do it? And he said, well, it might not be pretty in the beginning, but he does believe staff can do it. So I think the board needs to have a conversation about that. So whether that takes place right now or it's scheduled for a workshop coming up, I don't know how you want to handle that, but it needs to move from one-on-ones to the board table, please, and thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Patrika. Do we want to address that right now if we're going to move forward? I think it would probably be better for another meeting. If you're all right with that, Dr. Savage, I don't think we're probably prepared at the moment to do that, so. Okay, thank you. Ms. Juvenelli?
Well, while we're talking about conversations, I would agree with Ms. Fleming regarding the high school, because some of them came in with pomp and circumstance. Someone's just stated they came and sat in their seats and they stayed. I was actually lucky enough, we had a guest speaker at the South where the sheriff spoke. I actually thought that was and it was also the quickest the quickest graduation, which I'm not sure, I'm trying to figure out if that's because they didn't have the processional. Maybe that's why that was so quick. It was an hour and a half, like almost to the minute. And I was surprised. But yes, the sheriff was in attendance on the stage, shook hands, and spoke. And I had no idea until I got there. I mean, it was very nice. It was actually an awesome touch and everything. I would love to see more of our community leaders maybe doing a little speech or something like that. It was very short, like I said, because it was the quickest graduation that I did. And I was on number 5 at that point. So it was interesting. So I think it would be nice to hear conversation. Everybody kind of did their own thing, something different. The lineup was different. Cypress Lake does a beautiful touch. They have the JRTC come with the swords, and you walk through those. Everybody comes through that, and that was beautiful. And so I would love to. I love to see, you know, some schools their choir sang the national anthem. So there's so much that can be done and different. It doesn't have to be exact or the same, but I agree with you regarding the processional. I think that I kind of, and then when they went to go to leave, they tried to do that, and that didn't really happen. So there you go. But anyways, and we were talking about conversations, and I wanted to piggyback off of that. I still think we maybe need to have the cell phone conversation. Mr. Person sent us an article that I thought was really interesting, and it really made me think. I read that last night, and so I would like to, you know, have the other import of the board members' input on that. The Evergreen, I read something where it was presented to somebody has already received it. Who was that? I read something, and I sent an email. Yes.
I'm happy to respond. Yeah, so on the last board member one-on-one, we mentioned that in SPALC bargaining, that they're continuing through the summer specifically because they're digging into the Evergreen product. So we do have a response being mentioned on it, but it's not something where it's just set and done, essentially. It's reacting to large aggregates of data, and so they're just unpacking it. So it's just part of that process. So it isn't like a formal, we're at the conclusion, here it is, we're done. It's more or less digging into some of that information, which is in aggregate spreadsheets. So looking at many different positions, what are trends, what are analyses, then potentially what are options and things to consider. That's a body of work that we're anticipating is going to take potentially the entire summer. So that's really the most recent piece was SPALC. And our team basically making sure you're aware that is why they were going to continue their bargaining effort through the summer, was so that they could take some of the amount of money that was set aside from a compensation standpoint, evaluate how those data, as they kind of analyze it, could potentially be figured into that process. And so that's really what that was. But we're going to be happy to provide some type of summary update, more information that we can share on the Evergreen piece, because it is significant. But as I mentioned, it's not something where it's here we are, this is what it is, and that's all that is, and it's not a clean end of product type of situation like that. It's really a lot of information, a lot of data that they are digging into to try to understand what it really even means. I could go into more detail now, but we were working on something to give to the board to try to do a better job of articulating what I'm saying right now.
Gotcha. Well, my only concern is if SPALC has it, and they're using that to, you know, for the future, for their planning, their bargaining, then I think we need to have that. I mean,
let me clarify. I'm sorry. When we say it, that's what I'm trying to say. There isn't really an it per se. There's large aggregates of data that are spreadsheets that's operational in nature that they are looking at because it goes position by position. It's analyzing minimum, median, and maximum salary ranges. There's just a lot of information in there, and that they're just being invited to try to understand what we're looking at. It isn't a finished, we're all done, this is all there is type of thing where we have that at its conclusion. It's just a piece of that process. So I definitely received the request. We're working on trying to provide just so that there can be good understanding of it, but we want to make sure we understood that it was intentional to engage the SPALC bargaining because it is such critical information, and we want to ensure that any dollars that we've set aside, this board has been gracious to set aside for that piece, and they are utilizing that's also addressing some of the issues that come up within that data review. So there's more to it. There's so much more than I can say, but it's in terms of, because there's so many different impacted aspects to this of things such as the sellers. That's what I'm saying, but we're not at a point yet where the work is completed, or even at this point, I would say close to completion. And we're just not there yet. But that's, I'm probably failing to do an adequate job explaining it, but it isn't something where I can say, here, they're done, I can hand it to you. If that was, then certainly the board would be entitled to that, and we would want you to have that information, but we're just not at that point yet. But I would say that there is data that if the board's request is to go and review data, that's what we just want to make sure that there would be clear understanding of what it is, what does it mean, what are you looking at, and that's the process that we're literally just beginning as we speak.
Okay, so help me understand, because if I remember correctly, we went with Evergreen because they were going to do it within 6 months. I think we have to be approaching that. I expected that Evergreen would package it in a nice pretty bow. Now you're telling me that the district is having to do that?
No, I would say there will be some bow, there will be some package.
Okay.
That package, my understanding, is not yet prepared. What it includes is things such as recommended solutions and so forth, things to that nature, because it's not just encompassing SPALC, it's also encompassing administration and so forth. What we're talking about specifically, what you read about, was strictly the SPALC side, trying to get some understanding of it. So they have put, some of these are in public meetings and so forth, that it's all there. They've tried to introduce the elements of Evergreen. Here's information we have. How do we want to proceed with that understanding? And the union, the other side of it, the SPALC representative said, we are interested in utilizing that as part of our conversation now, which quite frankly, we're thrilled about, because both sides recognize there's issues. Otherwise, we would not have commissioned that Evergreen. But yes, absolutely, when there is something that we are prepared to be able to bring forward that represents anything close to what you're understanding a bow product, that certainly would come forward. But we're even looking at preliminary information, which we are trying to summarize to best explain where we're at today, so that you have that information. We're just working on that.
Okay, well, thank you. I just know that I know the community as well as the staff and teachers, everyone's, we're waiting, waiting for that information. Absolutely. Because that was very important, and so I just wanted to see exactly where that was at. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up also was, and this is a conversation, and I don't know, regarding the audio versus video for advisory committees. I wanted to bring that up to have another conversation, because we had made a decision to walk back to audio recording versus video because of finance not having attendance and meeting quorum, and they're still not meeting quorum, and and it's just audio. So I don't believe that really affected the reason why they're not showing up. So that needs to be addressed when they're not meeting quorum, because I believe it's just finance. I think everybody else is meeting quorum. So I think we, as a board, need to discuss the advisory committees, why we're not meeting, why, some of them are meeting quorum and then some are not, and what we can do to make sure they're meeting quorum, or maybe we're not putting the right people in there. I don't know. So, and I would like to talk about video recordings again, because of the situation that happened at Curriculum Advisory. I think if we were able to view it, we might have looked at things differently versus the audio and listening to it. And so I would like to have that conversation. It doesn't have to be today, but I wanted to bring it back around. Thank you. And I'm good, thank you.
Okay, good. Couple things, let me go back just what some of the board members said just before I get onto my own thing. So the audio video, maybe we can have some discussion, one-on-ones, maybe get some data on attendance and any feedback from any committee members as well. Maybe that would be helpful to see.
Thank you.
Next up, just getting back to what Ms. Morgan talked about with board attorney, maybe we can also get some guidance in one of our one-on-ones in regards to the Evergreen portion for our attorneys, all of our attorneys, in regards to that, just so we can make sure we're reviewing and don't let that fall through the cracks as well. So, and we need to figure out at some point, again, once we get that and figure that out, what kind of, discussion, for moving forward with that in regards to board attorney, as well as anything in regards to the other attorneys, the assistant attorneys as well. So I think if that's agreeable to the board. Yep, Ms. Jordan?
I'm just sitting here listening to, like right now, I know it was mentioned about going to one meeting, but now I've listened to talk about contracts, a workshop on this, a workshop on that, multiple workshops or conversations, and then one-on-ones. When we do one-on-ones are great, but that's not us having a conversation. And I think we're really failing on us as a whole, having that conversation is not taking, anything away from the one-on-ones, but I think as a whole, we need to be having that conversation in the public. So that's just my advice, and that would be coming back like we used to come back with, we used to have where there were items that we wanted to bring up, and then we made, which we haven't done that for probably over a year now, items that the board members wanted, and if we were all in agreement, that we would have that, come back and have that conversation where we would have all the information needed, and then we'd have that conversation and it's done. So I would like to see more of that taking place in conversation, because this is our only opportunity to have a conversation with each other. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Persons?
Just for the public's knowledge, we were talking about having one action meeting, but probably 2 workshops like we're having right now. I think is what, in my one-on-one, I had talked about. So when we have this discussion, we'll have to decide what we're going to do. But it was sounding like we're only going to meet one time a month from the dais here. So I wanted the public to know that's not our intention. And they would be longer workshops. So I think we can do it.
Okay, Ms. Patrica?
In the end, we would have to change policy to allow public comment at a workshop, because we do not want to minimize public comment at our meetings. So I want to throw that out there for anybody that's watching as well.
Yes.
Ms. Jordan, I appreciate that. And when I'm saying it, and maybe just clarify my standpoint, when I'm saying the one-on-ones, my expectation would be we have a board discussion after that, perhaps get some of the initial data, some of those things out of the way, and have that. I agree with that. That was kind of what I was thinking about, get some of the preliminary matters out of the way so then we can have discussion. So yes, I've asked for multiple discussions as well for the past 6 months for a year, so that I'd like to see come forward. So getting back, and that's what I meant for the audio video, let's see some of those statistics and then we can bring that, if the board so chooses, to a discussion for that. I know we've already had some background as well on the board attorney already with that. So in regards, let me separate that. In regards to the contract for the board attorney, let me separate those 2 topics. So the other one that was brought up, Ms. Juvenelli had talked about cell phones. I know we do have the code of conduct tonight for a public hearing. It was my understanding, if the board can double check with my recollection of this, is, we were going to take a very heavy look at cell phone usage, essentially as, the next step, perhaps if we need to do it before, the end of the first half of the school year, so that we'd kind of come back on that, just so we could give the appropriate time, but make sure that we are, setting something up that soon. Was that the expectation of the board?
Yes.
And that we don't want to let that fall by the wayside, but we also want to make sure we don't hold anything up. Do you have, are you good with guidance on that, Dr. Savage? Or understanding?
Yes, I sure am. That was my takeaway as well through the board member sentiment, was that, and so we aren't waiting till the semester. We're obviously already working on that now and kind of looking at the data, because obviously, as you know, they went out and spoke to a lot of different groups. They were analyzing what are the themes of concern, bringing that more information to you. So certainly to you individual board members, we'll be bringing additional information, and there will be additional body of work that occurs over the summer as well and towards this end.
Okay. And just to emphasize that, like Ms. Juvenelli and Ms. Jordan had indicated, maybe some of these topics we talked about, if we can get an update and make sure, to move forward on whatever workshop topics we will with this, that would be appreciated.
Absolutely.
Okay, now I'm going to get to my things, some of the fun stuff. Couple things, you all hit most of it. Rotary Scholarship Athlete Banquet. That was another great time. I was waiting for Ms. Langford Fleming on that one, so, but that was another great time. It was just so amazing to see, how much these scholar athletes do. You see 5.0 GPAs and then, first team, either, soccer or, all county, anything. So I truly want to give a shout out to, some of our student athletes. There were some really impressive, amazing kids out there. Another one, Mayor's Scholarship Ball. I know some of us in Cape Coral attended that. It was a really good event. One of the things that was another awesome thing was not just high schools, but there's scholarships given out for the technical colleges and the service academy. So I thought that was really, truly inspiring. Horizon Council, I went there last Friday as our monthly meeting, and I just wanted to point out, I think it was awesome as the topic was on STEM, and Mr. Sharma was there, Dhruva from Fort Myers High School student that's as part of the Java the Huts and the robotics and that stuff, and he gave part of the presentation there. It was fantastic. So I know that I saw him in the room. Mr. Gomez was able to attend that too, and he can give you some updates on that. But that was really a highlight of that meeting, and just seeing what STEM can do for our kids. So he did a great job. So as well as I had my drug-free coalition meeting, and there was a discussion obviously in regards to vaping and the Juul settlement, and they had some questions from that board, so I have referred them on through administration, to kind of add some of their expertise and input on that. So and that is all I have at the moment. I believe Attorney DeBrie Bruno, you would be next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have anything except to congratulate Ms. Fuller on becoming Title IX certified.
Awesome. Dr. Savage?
Yes, Chairman, just wanted to, one of the questions that was asked earlier in terms of Ms. Morgan requested about the Title I materials, I believe, the kits and so forth, whether they appear in different languages. The answer is yes, they are. For those math kits, they are available in multiple languages as well, so that will help with the parent side of that as well. The other than that, just I would be remiss if I didn't offer out to with the end of the school year. It's just a tremendous milestone when we get to the end of every school year. Just a lot to celebrate in terms of just our students coming back, but also then the excitement to the next year, obviously the graduation ceremonies, but then also our staff. The credit to how hard everyone works throughout the year, all that they do to try to get to the testing season. We are just coming off these last 2 weeks of just significant amount of folks going through these end-of-year assessments where their hard-earned work is then showing up in individual results. We, of course, are aggregating those results, and while we do expect a significant delay this year in the state in terms of assigning grades, that is going to be significantly delayed based on the information we received at the most recent FOIL conference. We will certainly be providing school-based performance as soon as we have that, even though it won't necessarily be the official school performance that comes through the state, as we get those data together and can summarize those things so that this board can understand how this year performed, and we'll be putting that information together as those things occur. But that said, just very proud of the work that has gone on to this year to try to improve student outcomes and just a big thank you to our staff for a hard year of work, and I hope they really have a wonderful summer as they begin it, except for those who are going to summer school and are excited to continue the work through the summer, because it really truly never ends. So thank you to all.
Thank you, Dr. Savage. Next up, we will have the longevity ceremony at 5 p.m., followed by the board action meeting at 6 o'clock tonight. At this point, having no other business to come before this body and seeing no objection, this meeting is adjourned. The time is 1:57 p.m. Have a great afternoon.